Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem, and in today's top stories. Terror plagued Jerusalem over the weekend, injuring 8 Israeli civilians, including 2 in critical condition. Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz highlights Israel's unyielding resolve to maintain its freedom of action in all areas vis-à-vis the Islamic Republic of Iran. Multiple targets were struck over the weekend in Syria in separate deadly attacks which the Damascus regime claimed the Israeli Air Force holds responsibility for. A terror attack plagued Jerusalem just outside its walled city on Saturday night when an Islamist terrorist opened fire toward Israelis in a vehicle and an adjacent bus, wounding 8 civilians. The attack occurred at approximately 1:30 a.m. south of the old city near the landmark tomb of King David.
סמוך לשעה 1:30 מגיע מפגע שמבצע פיגוע ירי לעבר רכב פרטי בו 2 נוסעים ובהמשך לעבר אוטובוס. כתוצאה מהירי נפגעים 8 אנשים, 2 במצב קשה, 5 במצב בינוני ו1 קל. המחבל נמלט מהזירה לכיוון כללי סילואן. בוצעו פעולות מצוד נרחבות בסיוע שב"כ, ימ"מ וכמובן כוחות המחוז. עד להסגרתו ניתן לומר שבמהלך הפעילות בוצע שת"פ סדור ופעלו כוחות מיוחדים. מערך המודיעין ידע לאתר את פרטי החשוד, אותו חשוד תושב מזרח ירושלים שביצע את פיגוע הירי. נוסיף ונאמר שגם האקדח ששימש אותו בביצוע הפיגוע נתפס.
It is important to know that one of the 2 critically injured was a pregnant woman who sustained gun wounds to her abdomen. Consequently, medical staff conducted an emergency C-section, and after several hours of intensive care, both the mother and the premature infant have been stabilized. Moreover, all of the other wounded civilians are also in stable condition. Meanwhile, after the Israeli security forces closed in on the abhorrent terrorist, the suspected assailant turned himself in. Speaking at the start of the transitional government's weekly cabinet meeting in Jerusalem, Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid highlighted that whoever harms Israeli civilians has nowhere to hide.
בפיגוע ירי שהיה הלילה בירושלים נפצעו 8 אנשים, 2 מהם קשה. כוחות הביטחון היו במקום אחרי דקות בודדות, ובמהלך כל הלילה נערך מרדף בשיתוף שב"כ, ימ"מ, כוחות משטרה גדולים. המחבל הסגיר את עצמו הבוקר למשטרת ישראל ונמצא כרגע בחקירה. בהערכת המצב שקיימתי היום עם השר לביטחון פנים, המפכ"ל, מפקד מחוז ירושלים, צוין כי מדובר במפגע בודד, תושב העיר, בעל עבר פלילי. יש מסקנה אחת מהאירוע הזה, כמו מאירועים קודמים. מי שפוגע באזרחי ישראל לא יהיה לו לאן לברוח. אנחנו נרדוף ונשיג אותם בכל מקום ונמצא איתם את מלוא חומרת הדין.
Premier Lapid went on to assert, however, that while the act of terror may lead to copycat attacks, police forces have ratcheted up their preparedness to ensure that holiday events will commence in the city with a maximum sense of security.
שוחחתי הבוקר עם ראש עיריית ירושלים, הוא ממשיך להכין את העיר לאירועי החג. ירושלים תוססת ומלאת תיירים, וכך נמשיך לשמור עליה. מרחב ירושלים תוגבר החל מהלילה באופן משמעותי כדי למנוע פיגועי חקיינות, אבל אני רוצה להדגיש, ירושלים בירת ישראל בטוחה, פתוחה, חזקה, מסבירת פנים לתיירים ולתושבים כאחד.
As part of Israel's continued efforts to bolster domestic security, IDF, ISA or Shin Bet and Border Police Special Operations Forces conducted counter-terrorism activities in the West Bank districts of Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley overnight as part of Operation Wavesbreaker. During the course of these separate operations, a total of 19 terror suspects were apprehended overnight, including a weapons smuggling ring that operated from Israel's eastern neighbor Jordan.
בתחילת חודש אוגוסט סוכלו על ידי לוחמי יחידת מגן ויחידות נוספות של המחוז הדרומי, בהן יחידת המסתערבים של מג"ב דרום, היחידה האווירית וצה"ל, חוליה שעסקה בהברחות אמל"ח מגבול ירדן. בפעילות נעצרו לאחר מרדף ארוך 3 חשודים שברשותם נתפסו 9 אקדחים מסוגים שונים שהוברחו להם זמן קצר לפני כן על ידי מבריח ירדני בגדר הגבול.
Separately, in the village of Akeb, east of Jerusalem, Border Police special operators from the undercover Yamas unit entered a house for the purpose of conducting a search of the belongings of a suspected arms smuggler. During the operation, an altercation was reported with residents of the house, during which the suspect reportedly drew a knife and rushed towards the Israeli troops who responded with live fire, neutralizing the assailant. No injuries were reported among the Israeli forces. Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz hosted his Cypriot counterpart Charlambos Petrides on Thursday of last week, during which the two top defense ministers held a string of meetings on ways to deepen security cooperation between Cyprus and Israel.
The great bond between Israel and Cyprus is based on shared values and interests and a common vision for a peaceful region. This translates to many areas of defense cooperation, including strategic dialogue, industrial projects, and military activities. From the personal meetings that we have held between us to the excellent military exercise held in Cyprus in June and the working groups held by our policy leaders, defense cooperation strengthened the readiness of each country to face developing challenges. We also value the trilateral framework with Greece. It is an asset to force build-up of the individual countries as well as to wider regional security.
Jerusalem's top defense official further updated his Cypriot counterpart on the conclusions of Operation Breaking Dawn and seized also the opportunity to underscore the Iranian connection, since the Palestinian Islamic Jihad is an Iranian proxy that is fully funded, trained, and equipped by the Ayatollah regime in Tehran.
I would like to stop and emphasize that the Iranian Ayatollahs are involved in this front. Islamic Jihad in Gaza is a violent Iranian proxy. Their leadership visits Iran and meets Iranian leaders frequently. Islamic Jihad has an open tab in Iran. Iran provides Islamic Jihad in Gaza with tens of millions of dollars per year. Iran, via IRGC, transfers know-how and attempts to smuggle materials to Gaza, which are then used to build weapons aimed at civilians.
Minister Gantz further stressed that while quiet has been forcefully restored to Israel's southern border, Jerusalem maintains its freedom of action in all arenas as the Islamic Republic of Iran continues to spout terror and instability throughout the region and beyond.
While quiet in the area was restored, we cannot rest. On the operational level, the State of Israel will maintain its freedom of action in all arenas. As I have said in the past, our eyes and targets focused on anyone who threatened the security of our citizens from Khan Yunis to Tehran. On the strategic level, Israel will continue to work with our partners in facing Iranian aggression, which harms the security and stability everywhere, from the Israel-Gaza border to the Mediterranean Sea to the Gulf and beyond.
A day after Defense Minister Gantz made these remarks, Israeli tanks on the border with Syria reportedly opened fire toward an observation post, which is believed to be operated by the Lebanese Iranian proxy Hezbollah in the vicinity of El Hamidiyah village, which is situated near the armistice line with Israel in the northern outskirts of the town of Quneitra. And while Syrian medical authorities claim that 2 civilians were injured, attributing blame to Israel, the IDF spokesperson's unit did not confirm or deny its alleged responsibility. Separately, last night at approximately 8:50 p.m., unknown aircraft launched a number of missile salvos toward the outskirts of the Syrian city of Tartus, and in tandem, 2 highly accurate projectiles struck a military installation in Rif Dimashq. The Damascus regime quickly pointed a blaming finger toward Israel, since all of the strikes, which were highly accurate, bombed military installations which house Iranian infrastructure and proxy militias. Moreover, when Syrian air defense batteries, which were located roughly 8 kilometers from a Russian military base, attempted to intercept the unidentified aircraft and incoming projectiles, the batteries and an adjacent radar were subject to a precision attack which effectively destroyed it and killed 3 Syrian troops and wounded at least 3 others. Meanwhile, the IDF spokesperson's unit did not confirm or deny its alleged responsibility in response to TV7's request for comment. Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. Since TV7 Israel is a donation-based ministry, we would like to encourage you, if you're blessed by our productions, please consider making a financial contribution that in turn will enable us to sustain our ongoing operations. Additionally, as ever, I would like to encourage you also to pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide and for the peace of Jerusalem and the salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hessen, wishing you a Shavua Mevorach, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.